We are your church, and we are proud to be your church, or at least a church that's having a positive impact on your life. I am personally blessed to be your minister, or at least a minister who you're allowing to speak into your life. I hope you'll support our ministry and share your love beyond belief by texting LOVEBB to 41444 or go to our website. But you can just text LOVEBB to 41444 and make your gift. It's wonderful. Thank you. Be blessed and be a blessing.
Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving, ours is no caravan of despair. Come yet again, come. Thank you.
I just want to say a few words. Marlon did remind you that I come from a Baptist tradition. But I am truly only going to say a few words this morning. Truly I am. Because what I want to say is not so much preachy. You know, I don't really want to preach. I want to be pastoral, all right? I want to be able to embrace you and just head to head, tete-a-tete, just say to you, you know, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. You know, and we have an example of that in our scripture where Jesus was talking to his disciples and he was really angry. But he was angry because he was trying so hard to teach the lesson, but he realized, you know, it's going to take more than just preaching. And even healing and doing miracles and prophesying like that, you're going to have to be pastoral with people. You got to start where people are. So on this day, I want to talk about in between. You know, Christmas was just the other day. And New Year's is a little bit ahead. When I was working my 9 to 5, this was called the dead week between Christmas and New Year's. And so it was called the dead week because nothing was going to get done. People weren't in the office. People weren't around. But besides that, you didn't really feel like it. You didn't feel like really being industrious. The in-between is just one of those seasons that you say, okay, let's just knock it off. And so a lot of people started in between today. They said, you know, I'm going to stay home and curl up with a book or the New York Times or the Tulsa World, or bring out your phone and read the Frontier. Amen. You know, they said, I'm going to do that rather than come to church. But I'm glad you're here because I'm going to tell you something, and I hope they're watching live stream so they can hear it too. In between is not a good thing, really, because our minds are on the past or they are projecting in the future. So we're worrying about the future or ruminating about the past. We're thinking about Christmas and all the year that it's come, and we're bah humbug, maybe. But then again, maybe you're thinking, okay, you know, that was really great. Christmas was great, and, you know, Uncle Jerry didn't say nothing crazy, you know, and it was all good. You think maybe. But wherever it is, your mind is on that instead of this. Or you're thinking about New Year's and you're thinking about that dreaded word, resolutions. And all the things you say, oh, I'm going to get done. I'm going to get them done. Because why? It's New Year's, you know, it's a clean slate. And I'm going to just go after it. So you're worrying about that maybe because, you know, you need things to get things done. And maybe you don't have the capital, you don't have the resources. Maybe you are afraid that what you did in the past is going to catch up with you next year. And so all of those kind of places ruminations and worries are not what you really want to be, church. Where you want to be is right now. Right now. That's where you really want to be. Now, I know this is difficult sometimes because the title of this sermon is called Now, period, Here, 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 period, this. Now, meaning time, here, meaning space, this, the object. Now, here, this. And of course, it's a play on words. And when I submitted my title, someone said, "Oh, Reverend Davis, that old codger, he wrote H-E-R-E, and he put all those periods in there. Let's make it H-E-A-R." And so there was publication that said, "Now hear this," as if I'm going to deliver a Donald Trump sermon, you know? No. I corrected that. And of course, I love, now you got to understand, the people who work tirelessly to get things done in this church have my utmost support and encouragement, because I know they're working hard, because I make them work hard. You know, they say, "Reverend Davis, I need to have this by," and then I say, "What's the drop dead deadline?" And I sent my little title and everything, and I said, I dictated this, and sometimes the dictation doesn't always work, so correct where you may. So I gave permission. Now, here, this became that. And then that's someone who I believe was thinking in the future. This is what he really wants. But then there was some folks that were thinking in the past. They said, "Now hear this, I know what he really means is be here now." So, you'll find something online that says my title is Be Here Now. That's kind of what I'm saying, but that's not really what I said. Now, period, here, period, this. Now, that was an off-Broadway play about 3 years ago. And it was about big questions, existential questions. It didn't last very long, but it was still a good play. And there was a recording. You might want to go ahead and get that, YouTube it, and hear some of the Broadway songs. But the reason why I used that is not the play really, but it was a book. Now, some of you all know that I lead a book discussion group called All Souls Reads. And it meets the second Sunday of each month at 1:30 in Thoreau Lounge. And our book for December was Tattoos on the Heart. If you're thinking about joining us, we read really good books. We have excellent discussion. And in January, the book is Between the World and Me by Ta-Nehisi Coates. So you might want to come on by and hear a book discussion group. And we're going to try to get an author in here by March who wrote the Indigenous Peoples' History of the United States about Native Americans. When I talked to her, she said, "I want to come to your book group." So hopefully we'll get her here. So anyway, that's my little commercial, because I like that book group and I like the people in it, and all who would come whoever you are. So here we go. The book Tattoos on the Heart is written by Father Gregory Boyle. He is the director of Homeboy Industries in Los Angeles. He works with gang members, people who are on the margins, people who you just don't want to be around. Tattoos everywhere, language that is not usually used in public. And they're Latino and Latina. So it's one of those folks it's one of those issues where the people said, "Okay, Father Greg, you deal with that. We're over here." But Father Greg did great work, church, because he treated everybody with love. Boundless compassion, he called it, because he followed what the scriptures say you're supposed to do. So Father Greg said that people would come through and come into his office all the time, and they had issues, big issues, church, not little bitty things, huge things, abuse, drug abuse, unemployment, anger management. I mean, huge stuff that was going on, and they came to him, and he had to do something to be there. And so he said this mantra. When people would be coming into his office, he would say to himself, now, hear this, H-E-R-E, because he wanted to be present. He wanted to be right there. No matter what he had been dealing with, he said, now, hear this. So I said, yes, I like that mantra, and that's right on time with the in-between season. It's not the past. It's not the future. It's right now, church. Right now. It's important. That's why I want to talk about it. There is an event called Burning Man. All right, some of you all know about Burning Man. It's in Nevada. It's in the desert. It's a creative experience. Some people call it debauchery. I don't. I think it's a creative experience, and people who are creative come to this once a year. It's about a week. And Burning Man has all kinds of unique experiences. This particular person wrote about walking through the desert, because you can do that. You can do that. You can be uncommunal sometimes, but you're going to have to come on back eventually. But he was walking through, and he saw a telephone booth in the middle of the desert, a telephone booth right there. And he walked up to it, and it had a sign on it that said, "Talk to God." So he said, oh, okay. So he walked into the telephone booth. He picked up the receiver, and then this male, mellifluous voice said, "Hello." And he began to talk about what it is. God, I want to know, how can we end this craziness, this war, these climate change issues, the poverty, the inequity, the racism, the sexism, and he just unloaded. And when he was finished, the voice said, "Breathe." And he said, "Breathe?" And the voice took him through an exercise in breathing. Inhaling and exhaling. And when he finished the exercise, he hung the phone up, and he felt so much better. He had clarity. He was in the present. He was in the now. He was right here. Now. That's what happens when you breathe. And we forget to do that, church. Mary Oliver said, are you living with a little breath and calling it a life? Breathing a little and calling it a life? Are you breathing a little and calling it a life? It's important for us to start right there, to breathe. We don't breathe. We don't slow down. We don't allow ourselves to be in the present. And that's why I like that scripture that Marlon read. Because the disciples, if you believe it or not, let's just look at it as what it is, it's art. And the disciples are saying, we didn't bring any bread. Now that's topical, because they just got through going through the magical moment of feeding all these people and all of that, and they had one loaf of bread, and they said, we didn't bring enough bread. So isn't that human? Isn't that what we do? They're instead of being in the past, they're in the future. We don't have enough to eat, so they're worrying about the future. We didn't bring enough bread, and they're grumbling over there. And Jesus said, hey. What did we just do? And he brought them back to the now. He said, do you not have eyes that you fail to see? Do you not have ears but you fail to hear? You are my boys. Come on. Y'all acting like you never heard of this before. We've been on the road for all this time, and you up here talking about bread. So he's a little angry. But it calms on down. He makes them recite, how many baskets left over did you have? And they all going, 12, 5. The little bobblehead. So, he's doing all that, making them, feel like that. And then he hits them with the bottom line. He says, how come you can't understand? Now, I believe that if Jesus wants them to be in the now, I think that's pretty good for us to pay attention. Mary Oliver said something else. She said, instructions for life. Here are your instructions for life. Number 1, pay attention. Number 2, be astonished. And number 3, tell about it. The instructions for life, according to Mary Oliver. Sounds pretty good. The number 1, pay attention. Be in the now. Breathe. Now, what does that really mean? Well, I told you about Father Greg Boyle with Homeboy Industries. He was being interviewed on my favorite interviewer, Krista Tippett, on Being. She is from Oklahoma, by the way. And Krista Tippett was on Being. She had Father Greg as her guest. And she had talked a little bit, and she was in a consortium where there were people who were present. And Krista stopped and opened it up for questions. And one question came from a person who identified herself as a Unitarian Universalist from Fairfield, Connecticut. And very well-spoken Unitarian Universalist, proud of who she is. That's why she said who she was. And she went on to say, okay, I hear what you're doing. I appreciate all of that, and your experiences are wonderful, Father Greg. But I ask myself, what are you doing? People like Father Greg's out here doing all this. All I do is write a check. What can I do? And Father Greg paused and said, well, keep writing the checks. Because, he went on to explain, but we all know we live in a place where we have to have that capital. And it's not one of those kind of situations where we just gloss over it and just, no, it's straight up. We need the money to keep going because that's where we are. So Father Greg was clear. Yeah, write those checks. Don't stop. We need this. We need to have that. And so her response, though, because people laugh just like you laugh, but people were quiet, and she said, okay, so I pay my indulgences, referencing the old tradition in the Catholic Church where you paid to get to heaven. You paid to get to wherever. And those were called indulgences. And then the Reformation changed all that. A little history, a little church history for you. So she said, okay, so I pay my indulgences. Then what? And then, Krista Tippett said, thank you. You really formed that question well. Father Greg, then what? And he said, okay, here it is clearly what we got to do. We are called to be in kinship. In kinship. Now that's an old-fashioned word. Who's your next of kin? We don't say that anymore. And who you kin to? We don't use that word. But kinship is a beautiful word. When I worked for the Department of Human Services and we had foster families, we had kinship foster families. And kinship was defined related by blood or emotional bond. And I love that. I love the kinship because kinship meant people in the church who were related by emotional bond to the little children, our neighbors, our teachers. It was not just by blood, it was by emotional bond. I don't know if DHS still recognizes that anymore because so much has changed. But that was a beautiful thing, to be of kinship and have that defined clearly. You don't have to be related by blood. You could be of emotional bond. What Father Greg is saying, you got to do it, y'all. You got to have kinship with those people on the other side, the dispossessed. You got to do it, because that's what we are called to do. If you are present, if you are in the here and now, if you are living and breathing and understanding what is going on, using all those capacities that we talk about, see, hear, feel, and understand, you are right here. You cannot ignore what you see, the inequities that are there. So yes, write the check, no doubt, but put a foot in it. Put a foot in it. Step into something that maybe you hadn't done before. And I'm talking to you here as a pastor. This is good for your soul. I don't know how many of you all have ever volunteered to teach a child how to read, or read to a child, or do something, not your own child, but another child, or do something that with that child that child had never done before. Like going to a baseball game. You know, taking a child to the circus, doing something a child never done before, and watch that face of that child, and watch your face too, because that's kinship. You have made a statement of relationship. Pay attention, be astonished, and tell about it. Because if you start telling about it, people start listening, and maybe they do it. So I'm saying to you that it's important, not only because it's the right thing to do, but it is the thing that will bring you the most joy when you are in the present. Marjorie Bowen Sweetly wrote the Litany of Restoration, and you all know that our church is named Church of the Restoration, and Marjorie Bowen Sweetly told me face to face that I wrote that for your church. So I believe that number 576 in our hymnals is the Litany of Restoration, but we're not going to go through it. But the first part is what I want to just say. If, it begins with the little word if. That word is a condition, because things aren't always the way we want them to be. But if they are aligned, if the planets are aligned, the people are aligned, your spirit is in motion. If you recognizing the interdependence of all life, that's a big phrase, recognizing the interdependence of all life, but it is the interdependence of all life. We are interdependent. Kinship is who we are. We are kin, because we have that emotional bond that is bringing us to this place. So if you recognize that there is an interdependency here, if recognizing the interdependence of all life, if you recognize it, you can't help it, but you're going to strive to build community. You can't help it. If you recognize that I am related to you, you want to do stuff with me. We want to build community. We want to exercise what kinship can do. That's called power. We strive to build community, but if you are building, if you are striving, you're building muscles. You're gathering strength. And that's right. That's the outgrow. The strength we gather will be our salvation. That will be our salvation. I was talking to a friend of mine who said to me that she had just heard that Bishop Carlton Pearson was back in town. I said, yes, he is. He's over at All Souls on the third Sunday of each month. Come on by. And she said, well, you know, he doesn't believe in hell. And I said, guess what? I don't either. I said, I serve a God who is a loving God. If you want to personify God, then fine. This God is a giving God that won't stop giving. That says to Gerald, get back up and try it again. It says, I'm not going to punish you, man. I'm going to help you get up so you can get better. who says, even though I'm disappointed with you, that you don't understand, I'm not leaving you. I'm right here with you, because if you stay in the here and now, you're going to encounter me, because I'm in the kinship. That's salvation, church. When we realize that we are here now. Stay beautiful, stay loving, and I'm staying with you.
We are your church, and we are proud to be your church, or at least a church that's having a positive impact on your life. I am personally blessed to be your minister, or at least a minister who you're allowing to speak into your life. I hope you'll support our ministry and share your love beyond belief by texting LOVEBB to 41444, or go to our website. But you can just text LOVEBB to 41444 and make your gift. It's wonderful. Thank you. Be blessed and be a blessing.